Welcome to the Fantasy Football Anonymous Show, brought to you, as always, by no one and by nothing. I'm Joe Osno, here with Matthew Schroeder, Rob Shaw, ready to talk about Week 13 in the NFL and in fantasy football. And it is the last week of the regular season for most leagues. So hopefully you're all set and ready for the playoffs, or you're already getting ready for next year, maybe. So I know I am in a couple leagues, but before we jump into this week's action, we're going to recap a little bit of Week 12, talk about some things that stood out to us. And Rob, we'll go ahead and start with you. What really stood out to you in Week 12?
Well, the fact that the three of us clinched the playoffs in my league, my wife with the 3-game winning streak there with knocking off some of the competition. So proud of her helping us out. And one of the big things that stood out to me is Kansas City's in trouble. We talked about it a little last week about how San Diego's really on the up and up, looking like they could take the division. And I think we're right. I think San Diego's taking the division. I think Kansas City, this is just not the team we saw early in the year. They were playing a Buffalo Bills team that has struggled 3 straight blowout losses for the Buffalo Bills, and the Bills came out and were able to stop the offense and put a few points on the board. Kansas City's defense didn't look awful, but the offense, they've lost that offense. And it's just kind of back to the Alex Smith that I'm a little more familiar with. So the one thing I've taken from this week is, you can't always be fooled by what's happening now when you have a lot of data, a lot of, film that you've seen of Alex Smith, who can be very good, but is more of a game manager. And when the explosive plays from the running backs and Hill aren't there, they really struggle to move the ball and put up points on the board. So I think this is what we're going to see. This is Kansas City. I think they'll compete a little bit. It's a well-coached team, but there's just not enough there. We might see Patrick Mahomes by the end of the season, if not next year. It's just kind of something. I'm also looking at Case Keenum playing very well right now, but we know what Case Keenum is. So when things start to get a little tough come playoff time, I wonder how the Vikings will fare. But Kansas City, they're in trouble. I don't think they have a good chance to get back in this. I think San Diego takes the division.
Wait, San Diego's going to be taking that division? I thought it was Los Angeles that's going to be taking that division.
We should have a whole gag reel on us saying St. Louis and San Diego. Because I can't break the habit. Anyways.
Yeah, it's hard. Hard too. But
the Baltimore Colts or the Indianapolis. Sorry, yeah.
I actually agree with you. I think the Chargers are going to take that division. They've been pretty hot recently. They came off a pretty dominating win over the Cowboys. But what really stood out to me last week is a couple things. Number one, favorites ruled the day. You look at all the games across the NFL, there were only 2 upsets. The Bills over the Chiefs, and I'm not sure we can call that an upset because of how bad the Chiefs were playing. And also the Cardinals over the Jaguars, which, that was a little bit of an upset, and probably not a lot of people saw that coming. But every other game, the favorite won, and in a lot of cases won big. And so I think we're now starting to get to see the NFL as what it truly is, and people can say, this team is more likely to win, and they're going to be more – it's going to be better probability now that we know who the good teams are and who the bad teams are, and figuring out, who's actually having the good years, who's having the bad. The game I really want to get a little bit of discussion on, though, is the Rams versus the Saints. This was a game of 2 teams that have been playing very well of late. The Saints had won, I think, 8 straight before going into this game, and the Rams were at 7-3. And the Rams were able to pull it out with amazing offensive effort. If you watch this game, the Rams kept on getting first down after first down after first down and big play after big play. They weren't nickel and diming here. They were getting big gains early and often against the Saints defense. A lot of people who thought that the Saints defense had improved, and it definitely has improved from years past. I still don't think it's the unit that a lot of people think. However, what I really want to talk about is how the Rams are actually contenders. I can't believe I'm saying that this year, but the Rams are actually contenders in the NFC. Their offense is dynamic. Their defense does enough. They get turnovers. They make some plays to get the ball back to their offense to win these games. And if they're at home and they can get a good crowd behind them, I could actually see them putting up a very good effort in the playoffs. Obviously, for a lot of the Rams players, you saw Sammy Watkins get more involved last week. You saw names like the rookie Josh Reynolds starting to get some work. Todd Gurley looked very good, and Jared Goff looked pretty composed under pressure sometimes. So this is just a team that right now is playing very well, and I would not be surprised to see them take the NFC West at all.
Yeah, I agree, Schroeder. And you mentioned Goff. A lot of people were writing him off like they made a huge mistake last year. It was like, let's just give it this year. A lot of times quarterbacks make that huge jump in the second year, and he's looked really good. I'm not saying he's Tom Brady, but I'm saying he's a Matt Ryan. He's a Phillip Rivers. He can give you a shot if you put the right pieces around him. He has the potential to make a run this year. He's playing well. He's playing composed, and they got the right pieces around him to be successful.
Yeah, I like to take guys. They lose their top receiver, Robert Woods, and it's just next man up. Josh Reynolds steps right in, has a pretty big day, and in his absence, Sammy Watkins steps up, gets more involved. Just a much better team than any one of us could have predicted, and that's one of the great things about the NFL. They can always surprise you. I want to talk about another 5-6 team that's kind of I think is kind of quietly moving their way up. Maybe they can sneak their way into the wild card discussion. The Cincinnati Bengals, a team that started off so horrifically, a really bad losing streak to start the year, but they're starting to play much better. They're getting some push from that offensive line, and we just saw Joe Mixon have his first 100-yard yet. Yes, it was against the Cleveland Browns, but they'd been a pretty stout run defense up until recently. And so I really like what I'm seeing from them as of late, and I think they have a chance to maybe sneak in as a wild card here in the last few weeks of the season.
Yeah, I'm a little cool on them, Joe. But you are right, though. Sorry.
Oh, that's partly because I hate a lot of the other teams in the AFC.
I think you're right. I'm with you on that. But they have a chance, and I think that's what you're getting at. The thing you point out, I do like them defensively against the run. The real question is Dalton gonna take that team, put it over the top? They have a couple tough games. I don't love their finish this season. But the AFC that last spot stinks. I mean, Baltimore is in that spot, tied with Buffalo. So it's really up for grabs. I think a lot of teams have a shot at it. I think Cincinnati has just as good as any of the 5-6 teams, and maybe even Kansas City, for that matter, better shot than Kansas City at this point. Yeah, interesting take.
Yeah, you heard it here first. We
that's right.
Blooper reel later, but you heard it here first.
And you know what? I didn't say it. So one of us is going to look like a fool, Joe. So it'll be fun to see who's right, who's wrong. But
all right, moving into week 13. Schroeder, what's a game that really stands out to you on the upcoming slate for this week?
Well, guys, one of the games I'm really interested in is the Vikings versus the Falcons. Falcons are at home. Falcons have been playing a little bit better recently. At least Julio Jones has been playing better. I'm not sure if you watched last week's game, but Matt Ryan didn't have that great of a game. I picked him as my love candidate, and he was only okay. He wasn't like horrendous, but he didn't go above and beyond, mostly because he had his other wide receivers throwing touchdowns to Julio Jones. Mohamed Sanu had like a 50-yard touchdown to Julio, which kind of took away from Matt Ryan's day. But Julio Jones had a dominating performance, which Julio Jones does have one or two of those every single year, where he just wins you your week if you play him that week. And so they're going into this game against the Minnesota Vikings, whose defense has been suffocating, whose offense has actually been very good with Case Keenum leading them. Case Keenum over the past 4 weeks has been a top 8 quarterback in fantasy football. Amazing. that he is rated that high, as he looked really bad in some early games. But he's starting to get a little bit momentum behind him. He's starting to get a little bit more in tune with this offense, and they're doing well. They have good weapons on the outside in Diggs and Thielen. They have a pretty good running game with McKinnon and Murray, and this is just an offense that's clicking. And as long as it's clicking, they're going to keep going with Keenum. So Vikings at Falcons, it's going to be very interesting who pulls this game off. Right now, I'm leaning a little bit more toward the Vikings winning, but I could easily see the Falcons taking this game.
Interesting there. Yeah, nice that you point out Keenum playing so well. I kind of bashed him earlier, but he's playing very well. I think that he'll continue this. I'm cooling off on him in daily fantasy once the actual playoffs start, and maybe I'll get into that a little later. But I like him down the stretch of the season. I like the Vikings to win this game. The game that I can't wait for is the Eagles and Seahawks. Wow. That's just going to be a great game. Great game for fantasy football. You think about this. The number 1 and 2 quarterback dishing it out. That's going to be a blast. Carson Wentz versus Russell Wilson. Two of the really, MVP level candidates playing just as good as you can get in football. So I just can't wait for this matchup. But the thing that I'm going to point out that I think the Eagles are going to win this game. The Eagles started off this season. They could run the ball. Wentz was passing very well. They could stop the run. Their secondary was suspect. They gave up a lot of plays and were ranked lower. It was their weakness. Over the last 4 or 5 weeks, they've been one of the top 10 pass defenses in the league. They have turned a weakness into a strength, especially being up all the time and being passed on a lot late in the games. I know you're expecting it, but still, usually teams give up a lot of yards. Their pass defense has played much better. I think they have what it takes to slow down Russell Wilson, not stop him, not shut him down, but slow down those receivers. And I think they win this game. I think their defense has slowly gotten better and better each week this year. And they're the top squad right now. They're my number 1 team in the NFL, close to the Patriots, but they're my number 1 team right now. So I think they're going to win. And from my fantasy analysis, I still like a lot of the offensive players, even on Seattle's side of the ball. I think this is going to be a classic shootout, one of the better games of the year. Much like last week's Pittsburgh versus Green Bay, which who would have thought that would have been such a good game, but it was fantastic. I think that's going to be one of these kind of games. It's going to be great. But I got the Eagles taking this one.
Yeah, really unexpectedly great game there. And I like the take, Rob. The Eagles are playing great. And a lot of times they just get up. It seems like they get off to such a quick lead that their pass rush can kind of pin their ears back and go after the quarterback. And their secondary doesn't really have to play that great because the opposing quarterback is always under duress. But they have stepped up their game. So I like it. I'm really looking forward to my Carolina Panthers going into New Orleans, taking on those Saints. NFC South showdown here. And, well, I'm not really excited about the way Cam Newton played last week. He was very inaccurate, and he was able to kind of boost his fantasy value on the ground. But Drew Brees didn't play that well in Los Angeles either. So what I'm really looking forward to here is that Saints running game against those Panthers linebackers. There's a lot of speed there. We're going to see if Luke Kuechly and gang could shut down or can slow down Alvin Kamara. I doubt really whether they can slow down or whether they can shut down that Saints running game. But yeah, it's two of the very best teams in that the NFC has to offer. I think those corners those backup corners for the Saints were really exposed last week against the Rams. I think that's going to be able to happen again here. Devin Funchess should have a huge day. Still no definite word on whether Greg Olsen will be out there for this game. My guess is that he won't, but if he is, that would be a huge boon to Cam Newton. and his ability to have a good day here. I kind of like the Saints to edge out a win here, but it's going to be a close one, and obviously it's going to be a great one.
Yeah.
The game's really going to be dependent on if the Panthers can stop the New Orleans running game. If they can, Drew Brees actually hasn't looked that good recently. I guess because they've run the ball so much, he hasn't been able to throw as much, and so he doesn't look as good. And I guess he needs to throw 50 times a game to look really good. But he's just been a little bit out of sorts. And if the Panthers can stop the running game, specifically Kamara and some of those short dump-off passes, then I actually like their chance to win. I think Cam Newton is going to have a big game running the football. I think he's going to be pumped up because this game, the winner has a very good shot at winning the division. And so this game has big implications for the NFC, especially the NFC South.
Sorry, Joe. Go for it.
I will say Brees had one of his best passing days of the season against the Panthers earlier on in the season. So they need to be aware of that. Those outside corners struggled with Robbie Anderson and Jermaine Kearse last week. So they need to step up their game. They're going to be ready for this one.
And one thing I'll note, I'm going with the Saints on this one, but it's close. I mean, these are two very good squads. And it really depends on – it's always my biggest knock on Cam Newton. Which Cam Newton shows up? The unstoppable Superman, which we have seen, where, he's just on point with his accuracy, making plays that not many players can make. I mean, maybe Aaron Rodgers. Or is it the inaccurate one? I think his decision-making has always been very good. It's just the inaccuracy can be a problem. So I'm leaning on him to be accurate this game. He can be inconsistent, so this is going to be the up game. And I think they're going to shut down Mark Ingram. I think he's kind of going in the other direction, but that's going to be hard to stop Kamara. More containing him is going to be the goal for this game.
Yeah, he's so elusive.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Well, guys, any final thoughts before we sign off?
Yeah. Actually, I don't have any final thoughts. I just want to make you all laugh. So
the Bills going up against the Patriots. That's a big one for you.
Start all your Patriots. Start every one of them.
The analysis you need to know.
Yeah.
That's usually good advice.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, we didn't even talk about Eli Manning.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll indulge us.
Express outrage like everyone else.
Yeah,
How could they
us.
bench him? How could they do that to this guy who's been so amazing for them? And honestly, I think it's because they're tanking. But what do you think this does to their weapons for New York? Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram, how would you say it affects them?
I've been trying to think about how it's actually going to affect both of these guys. The Sterling Shepard, usually whenever new quarterbacks come in, they target the tight end pretty early and often. They're kind of the quarterback security blanket. And so I could see Ingram's volume going down a little bit, even though the past 2 weeks he hasn't been that good. And so hopefully this change, he'll start to bring that those targets back up and actually catch some of those passes. On the other hand, for Sterling Shepard, I'm not seeing – I think his value actually goes down to this, as the Giants' offense is just not something that you want to have a lot of shares in. And I think you can find a lot better options than Sterling Shepard with Geno Smith as a quarterback. And we don't even know how long Geno Smith is going to be the quarterback. They might be bringing in Davis Webb even this game. And so you could still start Evan Ingram, but I'm definitely not starting Sterling Shepard with confidence. He would be more of a wide receiver, low 3, maybe high 4 for me moving forward.
I think, I might be starting for the New York Giants in a couple of weeks with that situation there. So, and then they'll get Sam Darnold and replace me. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Joe, final thoughts?
I'm fine. You said it all. I pretty much echo your thoughts on those pass catchers for the Giants.
Well, guys, we appreciate you watching. Please go ahead and like our videos as well as subscribe below. You can also reach us with any questions or comments you have at ffanonymous3@gmail.com, or you can send your tweets to us at ffanonymous3 as well. For me, Joe, and Rob, thanks for listening, and we hope to see you next week.
Stay addicted.